Today I want to show you how to make this vintage sign. It's really easy to make. I used mostly scrap wood from my garage and a little bit of paint and some elbow grease. And now we have a beautiful artwork for the season. We're going to go ahead and paint this sign together. I already pre-prepared the sign by just basically nailing a lot of scrap wood from my shop together. There's supports on the back and on the front. I've already transferred the image that I want to paint onto the sign. You may think you need a projector to do this, but actually you'll be surprised to learn I used a shoebox that I lined with black paper. There's a magnifying glass that I taped here, and there's a little stand for my phone, and all I have to do is bring up the image on my phone. Now I created the image in Photoshop just by putting together some images that I found online, and then also did my own type. You may notice that the image is upside down and reversed, and you're going to need that when you project it through the magnifying glass because it's going to flip it and it's going to reverse it. I put the brightness at the highest it'll go. Simply set this in the stand, went into a dark room, and projected it onto the sign. While it was projected in the dark, I traced my image with chalk. That way I can easily wipe off or fix any mistakes that I have. Before I get started, I want to look at my image and I just want to clean up some of the drawing. I'm using the folk art chalk paint just because this is what I have around, but I tend to really like chalk paint because it's matte and you don't need to prime your surface so it'll stick to anything. I have some water nearby, and I'm going to constantly dip my brush in the water to kind of keep it a little bit more liquidy. And chances are I'll probably have to do 2 coats of the paint, but I use the first coat to just kind of lock in my areas and figure out where I want to paint. I want to go ahead and show you a couple of techniques and tricks that you can use when you're painting signs, especially if your hand is not steady and you're thinking to yourself that I can't even paint a straight line. Well, let me tell you, you can do it. There's a couple things you need. First of all, you want some good bristled brushes, ones that are kind of firm but then also going to give. I really like working with flat brushes, and the reason why is because I can take it on the flat side and fill in large areas. When I turn it on its side, I get a much finer and a much more even stroke. When you're working on rough wood, it can be really hard to get a nice clean line. The way you do that is you drag back and forth, and what that does is it allows you to kind of get both sides of the rough edge. Take your time with this. If you screw up, you can take a damp baby wipe and just kind of wipe stuff off, especially while it's still wet. And for the smaller areas, I like to use a smaller brush, just so I can really control the paint. Now, for the things like the antlers, I like to use a really fine round brush. And I get it wet a little bit just to kind of flatten the bristles out, especially because some of my old brushes are from college, and so they've kind of seen better days. You don't want too much paint on your brush, but you'll have to go ahead and reload more often. Okay, the other thing I want to show you is when you're really trying to get a steady hand, it helps to have a stick. I just have an old wooden spoon, but like a dowel rod or a bigger paintbrush will work well. And all you do, let's see if I can maneuver myself and turn to the side for the camera. Also, I'm going to rest my hand on here because I don't want to get my hand in the wet paint. The nice thing about sign painting, especially an old rustic sign, is that imperfections are actually encouraged because it shows that it's hand painted. And after I'm done, I'm actually going to rough this up with sandpaper, so it's going to go ahead and hide a lot of the mistakes. If you find yourself struggling with a paintbrush, for example, this paintbrush is so flexible that it's not really giving me the control that I want, don't fight with it. Just get another paintbrush, because it's not worth it for your time and frustration level. So I'm just not going to use this one anymore. As I get to crucial parts like the reindeer's legs, I want to just kind of check and see, what the shape looks like. And so I'll look back at my image. As I move along, I'm going to backtrack and just kind of paint in areas that only have one coat, because it'll really make it pop. Otherwise it's kind of a gray white because the dark wood is showing underneath. When it comes time to painting a straight line like I'm going to do for the reins, I'm going to use a ruler, but the edge will not be flat against the sign. It actually kind of curves out a little bit, and I'm just going to use this as my guide. I've loaded up my brush with a watery down paint. And I'm just dragging it along. And then I'll wipe off any paint that got on the floor. The last thing I want to do is I want to distress the sign. I know it's hard, you spent all that time painting it, but distressing it will really give it that old look. What I do is take a 5-in-1 painter tool, put my safety glasses on, and just kind of scrape some of the paint off. And when I scrape over the grain, it'll kind of show a little bit more wear. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take the sander and really distress the rest of the sign. The last thing I want to do is really just kind of add a little bit of, well, what I call dirt, but it's actually just brown glaze. You can have any paint department take some glaze and just tint it to it's a real chocolatey brown. And all I want to do is just kind of rub it over the sign and then buff it off. And what it does, it just kind of adds a little bit of dirt, a little bit of age. In this case, because the wood is so raw and dry, it's just adding a little bit of luster too.